Welcome back, my friends. We are here to look at Magic the Gathering common cards and tell you if they're any good in the Pauper format and where they might be useful. I don't know. Let's take a look, and I guess we'll give them a score. The scores will be mostly bad, but some will be good. Maybe this one will be good. Gingerbread Cabin is a land that also counts as a forest. It taps for green mana, and this land enters tapped unless you control 3 or more forests. And if this land enters untapped, you create a food token. I don't think they're terrible. I think these Throne of Eldraine lands, there was a cycle of them. Witch's Cottage is the black one, I know that. But these are not terrible lands. It's cool that they have the basic land type in it. So if you are going to forest cycle with a generous ent, you could go grab a Gingerbread Cabin. Interestingly enough, generous ent, when it comes into play, it makes a food token. This can potentially make a food token. There are a number of food token style decks in Pauper. I'd say most of them are black based to have Cauldron Familiar be in there, but I've seen a number of them go into Golgari. I don't know if I've necessarily seen Gingerbread Cabin be played in here, and also one of the issues here is that if you are going to be playing Golgari to get your Cauldron Familiar, Gingerbread Cabin wants you to have 3 or more forests in play. And that's a little rough. That's a little rough to have that. Does this count as one of the 4? No, it says 3 or more other forests. So you're going to have 3 other forests in here. And, I guess you could have the tap duels. Those could work in Pauper as well, but that's going to slow down your mana base quite a bit. So you kind of want to be in mono green so you can just play basic forests and let this come into play on tap. But if you do that, then you don't get to have the fun of Cauldron Familiar. And I think that puts this card in a pretty precarious position in that it doesn't... in that the deck that wants it most also can't play it efficiently and can't get the most value out of it most of the time, or enough of a time that you probably would just end up cutting this from your deck and just playing another dual land or just playing another basic instead of this. So while I think this is cool, if you're playing maybe just like a straight up mono green stompy deck, I think it's perfectly fine to have a card like this in here that, hey, it just gets you a food token every once in a while. Maybe you can do something with that food token. Maybe not. Maybe you don't do anything with it, but you have that to just give you the 3 life when you need it. Green is also not the most affinity kind of deck. You're not going to find a whole lot of mono green affinity decks in Pauper, so they don't really need that artifact on the table. But 3 life is 3 life. If you just are able to play a bunch of basic forests and then you also throw a couple of these in there to get a couple of food tokens over the course of a game, I don't think that's bad. For a score wise, I think if this was in black, if this was a swamp that made a food token, then we'd be talking. We could give this a pretty high score. Even still, I think you could give this. I think give this like a 5.3. I think this is totally fine to go into a Pauper deck. But it needs to be something halfway specific, and the specific use cases I can think of right now don't quite work, unfortunately. But it's a pretty good card. Number 2 is Sarah Zealot, which is... have we done this card before? I feel like I've just looked at this art before. Anyway, it's a single white mana for a 1/1 first striker, human soldier. It's great art by Dieter Lizzie. And that's all it does, and it's not all that great. We just have better cards these days in the 1 slot, but it also looks really cool. I'll give it like a 1.5. No, it's better than that. I'll give it like a 1.8. But I won't even mark this one down because I feel like we've done this one before. So maybe we just get like a bonus card out of the deal. Implement of Malice is 2 mana for an artifact. You can pay a black and sacrifice this artifact to have target player discard a card, but you can activate that only as a sorcery. And when this artifact is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you draw a card. Okay, so it's 3 total mana to both force an opponent to discard and you get to draw. It's not terrible. I think this would be a lot better if it was 1 mana to put into play. There's lots of ways to find 1 mana artifacts or get 1 mana artifacts out of your graveyard that you could possibly do more stuff with this. If like a trinket mage could go and find this card and be able to search it up for you, tutor it up for you. I think that makes this a little bit better. At 2 mana, just feels a little expensive. You also have to, more or less have to be in black or splash black in some way to be able to get the effect out of this at all. Well, at least get the discard effect out of it all. I suppose you could just put it on the table and then use some kind of way of sacrificing an artifact to be able to draw the card, because all this says is when it goes into a graveyard. So it's a little bit like an Eager Wellspring at that point, but also Eager Wellspring gives you a card when it comes into play. So probably should just play or Eager Wellspring over this 99% of the time. And also we've slowed down a lot on playing Eager Wellspring because now everybody's splashing blue so they can play Cryogen Relic, which kind of does what Eager Wellspring does, but better and more. So that makes Implement of Malice not quite as good. There's also a lot of cheaper discard outlets that you can use in Pauper that I don't think you end up caring about spending the extra mana to play a card like this. You'd rather just play the other cards. Altogether, though, it's not a bad little card. It's got some... I see where it could go in some decks. I think it could have a home in something like, I don't know, like a Jund Wildfire deck, maybe. But I just think there's enough card quality out there that this is not something you end up grabbing. So we'll give this I think I'm going to give this a straight up 4. I think it's a solid card that just kind of misses the cut on pretty much any of the decks that would consider running it. Next up is Howling Fury. It's 2 and a black for a sorcery. Target creature gets +4/+0 until end of turn. Looks good. Good job, Mike Dringenberg. As Dringen, I think it's Dringenberg. Either way, it's a cool looking art piece. Card itself, not amazing. 3 mana for a sorcery speed pump effect. Only pumps the power, so it's kind of just better for trading. And even when you're trading it, you'd rather it be a combat trick. Your opponent could also just snipe your creature before this even affects. Yeah, 3 mana is also pretty high for this kind of effect as well. Art's the best part of it. Art might be the only good part of this card. Let's go ahead and give this like a 1.6 or something and just keep on moving. To Foul Orchard. Foul Orchard, where did that originally come from? Is this an Innistrad? It's a Shadows over Innistrad card. That's interesting. Because we've just seen so many tap duels like this. There's a bunch of cycles of tap duels that don't have land types. Maybe I'm just thinking of like really old ones that are maybe only in the allied pairs. But anyway, Foul Orchard, it's a land, it enters tapped, and it can tap for black or green. These are generally fine. The problem is that you are going to want to play the ones with basic land types. There's even snow lands that come in with basic land types. So when you have your land cycling creatures, your Troll of Khazad-dûn, your Generous Ent, your Lorien Revealed, those are able to grab these dual lands as well. And that matters. That just matters in a way that playing these just completely puts them out of the realm of possibility in playing in one of your decks. Because if you're not going to play the tap duels with land types, or maybe you're already playing them and you want more duels, you're going to go for like the gain lands that can gain you a life when they come into play. You're going to go for the deserts that ping to ping your opponent for 1 when they come into play. There are enough tap duels that do something. There's ones that can draw cards. You can sacrifice them and spend some mana to draw a card and you might use those much later in the game. But these completely vanilla tap duels, there just really isn't a place for them at this point. They're good cards. Like, it's a tap duel. It's good. It's going to be on par with almost all the other tap duels 99% of the time, but it's that 1% of the time of the little value you get out of one of the other ones that means this card never gets played. 0 play. And that makes it really hard to score, right? Because this is kind of just a 7. Like, this is like, yeah, this is a good card. You could play this and it would do well in your deck, and you'd be like, man, what a useful card. But with so many other options, the way we're rating these things is usefulness in Pauper. And I think when you think of it that way, this has to be like, I mean, I kind of just want to give this a 1, right? If you were ever considering playing this card, I've got like 5 other cards that both tap for green and black that do more than this card. So I think this is a 1, which is weird to say because it's still a good card in a vacuum. But with the context, you should never, ever play this card in Pauper. So yeah, I guess we're giving this a 1. Weird to do. I don't feel great about it, but I think it's just true for the way that we've set up how we're talking about this. Slip Through Space is a single blue mana for a sorcery. It has Devoid, so even though it costs a blue mana, this card itself has no color. Target creature cannot be blocked this turn, and you draw a card. I think this is actually okay. Why is this card $11.44 for the list printing? I get that it might be rarer as a list printing, but it's what? Like, this is a 30-cent card. Anyway, that's silly. As a cantrip effect, something that you're playing and gaining another card back, you're basically replacing itself. And you get a little of effect here of a target creature can't be blocked. And in Pauper, at least, you don't have to worry about Pyroblasts or Red Elemental Blasts because this card is not blue. Even though you're playing in a blue deck, you're spending blue mana to pay it. They cannot use something that says counter target blue spell because this is not a blue spell. This is a colorless spell. How often do you need to play a card that says this creature can't be blocked in a blue deck? Do you play this in Terror? I have not seen this played in a Tolarian Terror deck. I think it could totally work in a Tolarian Terror deck. Draws you a card, puts a sorcery in your graveyard, makes one of your big snakes unblockable. Neither of your snakes, whether it's the Cryptic Serpent or the Tolarian Terror, neither of them have flying or trample or something to help them get through. So a card that lets them attack unblocked, it's pretty good. Like, could this be like a sideboard piece maybe? If you're going against White Weenie in a Tolarian Terror deck, do you just play something like this so they can't just have blockers for days? It's a thought. It's an interesting thought. Yeah, I wonder why this doesn't see more play. But I haven't seen it played. I think it could totally be played, though. To the point that I'll give this like a 5.9. I think this card's fine. Good, in fact. It doesn't even just have to be played in Terror. I think you could play it in a number of different kinds of decks. Maybe like a Simic deck that also plays some big, stompy green creatures. Now, those would generally more have trample, but even still, playing something that just needs to not get blocked and go in and swing and do some damage. Maybe even something that has a combat damage trigger on it, so it's nice to be able to get something through. Yeah, I think 5.9 is a totally fine score for this, and I think it could easily find a place in a Pauper deck. Maybe we just haven't found the deck archetype that this card makes work yet, but maybe we will. I think it's a solid one that we've seen. Next up is Make Your Mark. This is a hybrid Boros mana, so either red or white. For an instant, target creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. When that creature dies this turn, create a 3/2 red and white spirit creature token. Interesting. We've seen, it's in standard right now. What's it called? Furious something? Furious something? I have to know. Not Furious Bellow. No, I guess it's not Furious. Anyway, it gives a creature +2/+0 in haste, I think. I think it costs 2 mana. But if the creature dies, it leaves behind a 2/2 detective. So this is very similar, but in a lot of ways, it's kind of better because you do get a better creature back out of the deal. So what you could do with this could be a fun combat trick to make your opponent, like your opponent's blocked your creature thinking that they're just going to get a clean block on it, and you're able to pump it, make it a trade, and then you also get a 3/2 creature out of the deal. Maybe the 3/2 creature that you get is even better than the creature that you put into combat. So maybe you're getting a really good deal off of that. Maybe your opponent is lightning bolting your creature and going to kill it. You can play this, and then you still get the 3/2 creature after that. So yes, they killed a creature, but you do get some value still. You get to keep something out of the deal. And I think those are pretty useful effects. It could even be that you use this pre-combat to say, hey, opponent, you can block this if you want, but if you do, I'm just going to get another creature back, so maybe don't block it. Maybe you just give them a reason to let it go through. Woo, hello. So I think this kind of card has a decent amount of applications. It could just be a pump effect to allow you, if you're unblocked, to go in and swing anyway. It could even be you swing in, you pump in to give you a little extra damage, and then you have a sacrifice outlet that lets you sacrifice that creature potentially for some extra value, but then you also get the 3/2 creature afterwards. So there's lots of applications for a card like this. I don't think it's so strong in any of those ideas that I mentioned that it needs to show up in a deck. I don't think it has shown up in anything that I've seen. But I think this is like a totally serviceable card. And I could see it getting played pretty easily. I think especially if this was a black-white hybrid. If this was an Orzhov hybrid instead of a Boros hybrid, I think maybe we'd be talking a little bit more. Red can sacrifice creatures pretty decently as well, though. So I don't know. Like maybe you put this in like a, is it Blood Aspirant? Is that our boy? Blood Aspire. That's enough. Yeah, Blood Aspirant. Whenever you sacrifice a permanent, put a 1/1 counter on him, and then you can sacrifice a creature. It's pretty good. Pretty good. I like it. I don't love it, but I like it. I will give this a 3.8. 3.8. Another solid card. Ooh, Planar Incision. Okay, this is a card that I have in a Pauper deck. I don't see it get played in Pauper, but I want to make a case for it. So we will run through it first. So Planar Incision is 1 and a blue for an instant. Exile target artifact or creature, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter on it. Okay, I have this in a Dimir Cryogen Relic deck. That's mostly what the deck's about. The deck is the deck uses Nutrient Block as a 1 mana indestructible food, and then it uses Kenku Artificer that can turn a non-creature artifact into, what is it, like a 3/3 flyer, I think. Or it puts 3 counters on an artifact, I think, and becomes a 0/0 flyer or something like that. So the idea is that you make your nutrient blocks into indestructible flying creatures. And they're just good attackers, they're good blockers. You just have these indestructible things. It also uses the Dimir Bridges, the indestructible artifact lands, and you can turn those into indestructible artifact flying creatures as well. That's pretty cool. But then it also plays Cryogen Relic as another artifact that could be animated into a creature if it needed to be. But I also want to be able to bounce things. I want to be able to bounce or flicker, I guess more accurately. I want to be able to flicker Kenku Artificer so I can turn more things into indestructible or not indestructible creatures. I want to be able to flicker the Cryogen Relic because it has a leaves the battlefield trigger and an enters the battlefield trigger. So in that instance, I would get 2 cards, and the Cryogen Relic would have a 1/1 counter on it. So if I did animate it into a creature later, it's an even bigger creature. I think that's kind of cool. So I like this card a decent amount. There are other cards that flicker in blue that can do this decently well as well. But what I also really like about this is that it is an instant flicker. It is not a flicker that comes back at the beginning of the next end step, something like that. And there are plenty of blue and white cards that will do that. But I like that you can do this instantly. It's also a way of saving a creature or an artifact. If your opponent is, targeting it with some kind of removal effect, you're able to flicker it. Comes out of play, goes back into play. It's a new object. Their spell fizzles, and you get a +1/+1 counter on that guy. So that could be pretty useful. I think this is a cool card. I don't think it has gotten used in Pauper nearly enough. So hopefully I can be the evangelist. Maybe I evangelize it to you right now. Maybe I'm spreading the good word, and everybody's going to start playing Planar Incision in their decks. I think you should consider it. I think there's some pretty good reason to play this. The other one I was considering, is it Teferi's Time Twist? I don't think it's Time Twist, is it? It is Time Twist. How about that? So this one is beginning in the next end step, but it does come with a +1/+1 counter on it, so it's still very similar, but it also exiles target permanent, so it works more than just your artifacts and creatures. And I was thinking, do I have any enchantments in this deck that could work similarly here? And the answer was kind of no, but I think you could play like the Hopeless Nightmare or something and be able to flicker that and get more discard out of this. But most of the time I was thinking, well, I could just use this flicker here. Also consider flickering a, why do I always forget that stupid rat's name, that flying rat? It's like one of the most played cards in Pauper. I play it all the time. Modern Horizons 3. Don't worry, you know what I'm talking about. The flying rat with affinity for artifacts. And so you can blink that at instant speed with this, and you can force your opponent to discard a card at instant speed. That's something that you don't get very often. Discard effects are normally at sorcery speed because Wizards doesn't like you discarding your opponent's card before they even have a chance to really play it. And this is like an effect that allows you to just get away with that. And that is gross. That's so gross. Anyway, I love this card. I'm going to give this card I'm not going to give it a super high score because I realize it's still a relatively niche card, even in the deck that I've made. But I think it's a really good card. I really think you should try this card out. So I'm going to give this card a 6.2. But I really like it. I really like it. Also, it's from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, which just, I like Kamigawa. So that gives it some little extra nostalgia for me. Quick Study. Man, what a classic card. Quick Study. I mean, it's from Wilds of Eldraine, so it's not that classic. And now it's in Foundation. So I guess it's not that classic, but it feels classic to me. This is some regular ass, normal ass Magic. And I like it. Like I'm not trying to detract from it. This is a compliment. This is what Magic kind of should be. It's 2 and a blue for an instant. It says draw 2 cards. That's great. 3 mana, instant speed, draw 2 cards. It's you know, in standard you're not going to play this because you can play the oh my god, Stock Up. There you go. Ooh, I cannot forget all the card names today. But you're going to play Stock Up instead of that. You know, Stock Up is sorcery speed, but you're just getting more selection out of those cards and putting 2 in your hand. you'll play stock up over quick study every single day. But quick study is a totally fine Magic card. 3 mana, instant speed, draw 2 cards. I think this is great. I think this is just good, solid, normal card advantage. The problem is that blue can do some more disgusting things in Pauper, that this honestly ends up being a little slow, that you'll just find better options. You know, you'd rather just play the brainstorm and draw 3 cards and figure out what to do with the other ones at that point. You might rather use opt and just get a cheaper effect that gets you 1 card and then a little card selection, or a little card selection and then a card. Ponder, and there's just preordained. There's lots of cards that do enough card advantage or enough card selection that quick study becomes a little too slow. Even though it's called quick study, it is a little slow. Even like a thought cast that you could potentially pay 1 mana for and then draw 2 cards. You're going to end up probably playing that more often than quick study. I think the instant speed is really nice on this, though. And if somebody plays this in a deck, I'm not going to think twice about it. I'm not going to go, ooh, what a bad choice of deck building that is. No, I think this is a perfectly fine card. I'm going to give it just a little bit less than Planar Incision, because I really think you should play Planar Incision. I'll give this a 6. It's a very good Magic card, very solid Magic card. This is like a card that feels like should go in every cube, right? Just feels like Magic. You know, I don't think we see a whole lot of cards that feel like Magic anymore. And this one, Wild Spell Drain, that is in Standard right now, and then in Foundation, so it's double in Standard right now, and it will be in Standard for 5 years or whatever. So it's cool that we have a card like this that is just stock, standard, Magic the effin' Gathering. Good stuff. Next up is Anaba Spirit Crafter for 2 and red for a 1/3 Minotaur Shaman. Minotaur creatures get +1/+0. All Minotaur creatures, not just your Minotaurs, all Minotaurs. This was a rare in Homelands, and it's been bumped down in common in an online set. I like that this has been bumped down in common. I like downshifts. I'm a big fan of downshifts. I think they should probably downshift more cards. But I do not like when they downshift into digital sets. Now, this one's okay in my eyes because Homelands doesn't have a gold symbol. They didn't do the different rarity symbols for set symbols yet, or rarity colors for the set symbols yet. So I think it's fine for this one because they all look like the common symbol. But there are some where, you know, maybe only the uncommon is available in paper, even though in an online set it put it a common. And I really don't like that. It just feels like I'm cheating, or it feels like I'm asking my opponent to look at my deck more closely because I'm playing off common cards. I like my Pauper decks to have all commons in them. It just feels right. It just feels right that the format with all commons should have all commons, right? Anyway, we're stalling because this is not a very good card. It would be better if there were more Minotaurs, right? Would it be better? Maybe it wouldn't be better. It's still 4 mana for a 1/3. Although it doesn't say other Minotaur creatures, so it's 4 mana for a 2/3. This is always a 2/3, right? How many other Minotaurs you got? How many other Minotaurs you got? In fact, we could do the search. We could do the search, right? Let's look for Minotaurs in Pauper. How many Minotaurs do you guys think are in Pauper? I'm gonna say, before I hit search here, I think there will be, including this guy, I think there will be under 10. I'm gonna say it's gonna be something like 6. I'm probably wrong, but I think it's going to be something like 6. 52. Holy shit. I am wrong. Are any of these good? Is the second question. As long as it's your turn, this thing has first strike. Let's go. You know what? Let's go by mana value. I always like looking at it through that way. This guy, I guess, is turned into a Minotaur. 1 mana guy that way. Sticker cards. Taps to give Minotaurs +1/+1. Tax each turn of Fable. This guy can regenerate. That's something, I guess. It's very expensive to regenerate it. Can't block unless you control it. Oof, man. Prowess. Okay. You know, here's a 2 mana Prowess guy. 3 mana Menace guy. Oh, you could play the goat. I mean, he's a Minotaur, not a goat, but you know what I mean. Yeah, none of these are very good, right? That's kind of the problem here, is that if you're playing Minotaurs, you're already doing something wrong. Yeah, these are not great cards. These are not great cards overall. So it makes a Lord style effect for Minotaurs bad. Bad. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe some changelings could go in here, I guess. But no. This is not good. This is not good. You shouldn't get caught by this trap. This costs too much. It's a bad card. I will give this a 2. I'll just give it a 2. I don't think it deserves anything more than a 2. Probably deserves a 1 point something, but I will allow this thing to have a 2. And we'll move on to what is our final card of the day. Yeah, our final card of the day. It's Dawnheart Disciple. It's 1 and a green for a 2/2 human warlock. Whenever another human you control enters, this creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. If this was a counter, it gets a +1/+1 counter, I think maybe it would be a whole lot better. Well, I know it would be a whole lot better, but maybe it would be playable even. As it is, it's okay. It's a grizzly bear that can get slightly bigger, but you have to keep playing humans. You could probably make this work, but I think it's a lot of hoops to jump through to make it work, and you could just play better cards. I'll give this a, true to its power and toughness, I'll give this a 2.2, and I think we can call it a day right there. Little down on that one, but Planar Incision, baby. That's a good card. You should check that one out. All right, enough stalling. I'll see you next time.